Alright, so this is going to be part 4 to what if Deku had Black Bolt's powers. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Treat a bad bitch like she average. I'm a savage, little hoe, what you want do? I'm about cash if the raw fast. I'ma get that little nigga by any means.
Alright, so in the last part, we just got done with the USJ attack, and in this one, we're actually going to go through the sports festival. So, Aizawa would tell the students, this would be in the classroom, obviously, and he would tell the students that they're actually going to have a sports festival next, week. So they're going to have to take their time to train and get ready for it because it's a big event, and this will really affect their futures, depending on what, agency, accepts their internship. So he wants them to take it pretty seriously. So this is what Deku does. I think he would train alone since he's like really far ahead of everyone else in terms of strength and things like that. I think he would go with the kind of he would go to the support class and ask them if they could make him a new kind of suit, right? And this suit would be used to kind of help him restrict his power a bit more. So that's what he would do. And this suit would basically, it'd be able to absorb its power. Like every time he speaks, it would, shoot out the kind of large energy like wave. His like supersonic like screams because of the way that his powers work, right? And he would make them construct a suit that would basically help absorb that power. It wouldn't be able to make him like talk for long periods of time or even like that much, because obviously that energy has to go somewhere, and what it would do is that it would store that energy in a kind of battery, right, in the suit, and he could use this suit to kind of help focus his powers through like beams and things like that, like he would normally do, but more enhanced, right? And he could use the energy to improve his physical strength like he would normally do, but more effective, basically. So, in that week's time, he would basically try to kind of restrict his powers and try to focus them even more. Like more of the side. He's not going to do much physical training or even things like that. Just ways to kind of restrain himself, like I've been saying, because his quirk, or his not quirk, his power is very hard to use, right? Because he doesn't have too much control of it since he is still pretty young. So that's what he would do, and the other students would do the same training that they would normally do, but just without Deku being there, basically. So we would get to the day of the sports festival, and Deku would have gotten first place in the kind of entry exam, right? But the thing is that he can't really speak to people. And even with this suit, he doesn't want to overwhelm it with too much power, so he can't really do the speech. So what happens is that what's his name? Aizawa would explain his circumstances and why he can't speak. So they would have the runner-up do it, which would be Bakugo. And Bakugo would be very angry since he was the second choice, and he's only getting this because Deku wasn't able to do it because of how his quirk works, or his power. So he would basically say the same things that he would normally do in the series, but he would be kind of angry while saying it because of how he was, picked like this. And Todoroki and Deku would still have that kind of conversation about how he's gonna beat Deku, but not really particularly about strength. He's basically saying to Deku, like, you might have a strong quirk, but you don't have much control over it, and that's how I'm gonna beat you. So that's what he would say to Deku, but what he doesn't know is that Deku's been kind of training that, right? So they would go to the kind of starting line for the race or the obstacle course, and right when they say go, this is when Deku would use his flight ability, using the kind of sonic energy, right, that he would normally do. So he would zip past basically everyone until he got to the 0 pointers, which he'd be able to easily take out with one whisper, and not using all of his energy. It would only be enough to kind of like explode the head of the 0 pointer, causing it to tip over. So after that was done, Deku would continue flying, and he would pretty much win with no contest, really, because he's a lot faster than both Todoroki and Bakugo in this. So there'd be really no way for him to kind of lose that first part, right? So Deku would get first place, and then Todoroki would get second, Bakugo would get third. So just how it normally would be. So when we get to the cavalry battle, I think it would be pretty much the same in terms of teammates, right? Because no one wants to be on the team with that big target on their head, even though Deku is strong. So it'd be the same amount of people with Tokiyami, Mai, and Uraraka, and the other teams would be the same. And by the way, he would be able to use his kind of support gear or his suit, because he would have went through the proper paperwork, just how the person with the naval laser has, with that belt. Deku would go through the same process to be able to use his suit. So yeah. So basically in this one, Deku really doesn't have any competition because he's able to fly, which gives him a very big advantage in this particular cavalry battle, because as far as we know, none of the kind of students there had a sort of flying quirk at all. A lot of them can jump very high, but none of them really had a flying quirk. The only ones that could really do that would be like Bakugo, and since it's kind of harder to control because he's using explosions for him to like fly up, he wouldn't have enough control to get Deku. Plus Deku has things like the force field, and he has a lot more control over where he flies and where he goes. So it'd be pretty much an easy win for Deku. Plus he has people like Tokiyami that could block hits using his dark shadow. So there's no real competition in this part. So yes, Deku would still get first place for the cavalry battle, and then the others like Todoroki and Bakugo would still come in second and third. So we can skip to the kind of final fights, I guess. So Ojiro would still warn people about how Shinso has a kind of mind control quirk, right? So Deku is on guard, right? And we would get to the fight with Shinso versus Deku. So Shinso has no way to kind of mind control Deku because Deku's not going to speak, right? And if he did, Shinso would, no longer be there. So yes, Deku would see that he has no other, powers that have to do with physical strength, or even that he's done much physical training in the first place. So Deku would basically use his concussive blast to push him out of the ring, to not really hurt him too much. And this would make Shinso question why aren't you talking? And this is when Deku would use his telepath ability his telepathy to speak to Shinso and tell him why he can't talk. And I don't think this would, it wouldn't count for his quirk to activate, so he wouldn't get mind controlled. And Shinso would kind of start laughing and be like, of course, I got the worst, my worst matchup. And I think he would start kind of crying a bit because he would see life as very unfair to him. Even at where he got so far, he couldn't really get, past this hurdle because he just had bad luck in who he was going against. So Deku would kind of cheer him up by saying, like, if you work hard, he knows that he could become a hero, right? And this would somewhat cheer up Shinso, and he would just walk out of the arena just how he normally would do. So we would get to the fight against Todoroki and Deku, right? So Deku in this one would not really want to help Todoroki. Like, he wouldn't see a reason why to. In this one, Deku isn't he's not really like how he is in canon, right? He's a lot more serious, but he still knows he's a very powerful person, right? So he has to have that kind of restraint in him. So what would happen is that Todoroki would use his ice to kind of try to push Deku, or maybe even freeze him, but it's not really working since Deku can break the ice pretty easily. And Deku is thinking to himself, why isn't he using his fire side if he's the son of Endeavor? Because I think he would know that he would have more than one kind of power. So he questioned this for a bit, but he doesn't really care too much. So he starts charging up more energy to kind of get through the ice and then push him out of the ring. So this is what he does. He charges up the shot, and Todoroki tries to put as much ice as he can, but it's not enough, and this actually pushes him out of the ring. It kind of does the same thing, that kind of big explosion, like how what's it called? It's kind of like how the explosion was in canon, just with Deku doing it, right? So he would win that fight, and then the next fight would be Bakugo versus Deku. So both of them would get into the ring, and Bakugo would probably, try to pump himself up. He's like, yeah, finally I get to teach you a lesson, show you who's the boss around here. And Deku would kind of raise his eyebrow a bit and be like, so that's what he's trying to do? Trying to prove himself to, that he's the strongest? And he would be kind of, confused about this, but he would still go along. And basically, he would tell Bakugo, using his telepathy, that that's not going to happen. He's going to win, and all you have to do is just try your hardest. Right? He's telling Bakugo to try his hardest to beat him. And this would get Bakugo really mad, so he would rush towards Deku and try to, use explosions point blank, right? But Deku would be fast enough to kind of dodge this, and he would kind of do the same thing that he would do during the Heroes versus Villains test, where he did the Bakugo, where he just kind of threw him onto the ground. I think he would do something similar to that. And when Bakugo's on the ground, I think he would use his explosions to kind of push him back up and get him back on his feet. So then after this happened, I think he would be very angry, and he would try to make, he would make a lot of smoke in the area to kind of blind Deku, right? And he would come for another attack for explosions. But Deku, having higher senses than, normal people, because he's a human, he'd be able to dodge it pretty easily. So at this point, Bakugo is very angry, so he tries to do one of his ultimate attacks, which would be the Howitzer Impact, right? So as he's charging up this shot and actually going towards Deku, and right when he hits it, this is when Deku actually grabs Bakugo's hand right as he does the explosion, right? And he's using the energy that he's been storing up to kind of use as a shield, right? And after this is done, it's just Bakugo in utter shock because Deku has him, he's grabbing his hand, and he wasn't affected by his explosion at all. And after that was done, Deku just basically shoots Bakugo in the face with a concussive blast, knocking him out of the ring. So after this was done, everyone would get their kind of they would, All Might would, pick the winner. Or not pick the winner, but he would give out the medals, with Deku getting first, Bakugo getting second, and then Todoroki getting third. And he would do somewhat of the same speech that he would do normally, but obviously Deku would have his own kind of talk, saying that he showed a lot of promise as a new hero, and you really gave the audience a show. And he would basically say the same thing towards Todoroki about how he's supposed to use his fire, and he would say the same thing about Bakugo and how he should keep a cool head. So yeah, so this is where I'm gonna end the video. If you like it, make sure to like and subscribe. That really helps out the video. Likes really do. So if you want this series to continue, please give it a like. So yeah.